Hello, hello. Wow. Oh my goodness. It has been a long time since I've posted almost anything on this channel. So thank you so much to everyone who has been patiently waiting. I'm so excited about my special guest today. This is someone I've been wanting to talk to pretty much forever since I discovered her. Um, but before I introduce my guest, I guess I just want to give a bit of an overview of the new series that I'm introducing. So you would have seen recently that I'm starting a new series called Why We Left Islam. Look, I think the title pretty much speaks for itself. Essentially, what I'm trying to do is gather together a bunch of ex Muslim voices and stories and make sure that they are getting a safe space and the platform that they deserve to speak their truth. And I couldn't think of anyone better to start this series off with than the lovely Holy Humanist, as she's known here on YouTube. So I'll let her introduce herself. Naria, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Well, thanks. I'm very good. It's so great to have you here finally.
Yeah, I know. It's so good to be here. Thank you so much. I've been like meaning to collab with you for so long, and I'm sure like we're gonna do plenty more stuff. And I also just want to give you a massive like kudos for the new program that you're launching because I think honestly, the more voices that come out, the more stories that we hear, it's just gonna do that extra bit to normalize it. So kudos, and I hope it goes incredibly well. And thank you for giving me the honor of being your first guest.
No, thank you so much. I kind of didn't plan it, but I realized that the timing had worked out that just as I was starting this series, we finally had a time where we could connect. So I thought, you know what? This was meant to be. Clearly, Allah wanted this to happen, so let's just do
Allah has ordained this.
it.
Yeah.
So, as the title suggests, I mean, obviously, you and I, we're both ex Muslims with people who have walked through our own sort of unique journeys out of Islam. But before we get into some of that stuff, I guess I just want to backpedal a little and find out, where did your story begin for you and what did life look like when you were still a Muslim?
Yeah, sure. Basically, just to give a bit of context, as you rightly mentioned, I grew up in like a Muslim household. I was very much brought into the fold of like a Sunni kind of mainstream British Pakistani family, I'd say. So a lot of them are kind of like moderate to liberal, but then the elder generation are quite a lot more conservative. And we did live as like an extended family unit for like the entire time while I was in the UK as a child. So there was a heavy influence from like my grandparents, particularly my grandfather, who had like very strong connections to the mosque because he used to lead the prayer there and he was in charge of it. So because of our relationship and how close we were, I kind of was always gravitated naturally towards religion anyway. And I kind of, would be really keen to go to my Quran classes. And by the time I got to 9, I was already like reading the Quran in Arabic and trying to recite it. We'd have like Quran recital competitions. And obviously I was doing this on some level just because I saw how proud my granddad was of me. When people were talking about how well I can recite, even though that's usually more like a male kind of dominated arena. Girls don't usually recite Quran like that. But they really encouraged us to like really know about our faith. But surprisingly, when I did go to Quran classes in the beginning, so we had this little green translation book which had like English translations. And I think I only got to like the I think the third surah of the Quran in it, because again, it was just so like almost like Shakespearean English. And I was like a 9-year old. I was like, what's going on? um, but yeah, so I did that, and then again at 9, I started to wear hijab as well, and I'd go to school wearing hijab. I was pretty much the only one out of my friends and even like my neighborhood who fully made that decision. And again, I say this all the time. For me, it was a different kind of unique experience in the sense that it actually was not forced from my family at all. They actually like double checked with me to be like, are you sure? Because you're really young, and the taboo of taking a hijab off is a lot
Mhm.
more than putting a hijab on, for example. So it was completely like my own doing. I just really wanted to be that good Muslim that Allah wanted me to be. I wanted to be like just a good Muslim woman who's on the way to heaven, and I wanted to start early. So that was kind of the reasoning behind that. And again, we had religious education at school where you learn about other religions, and anytime there was a chance to like cheerlead for Islam, I would. And I like, would show the class how to pray. And I just took it very seriously. Um, at a very young age. So that's kind of the backstory. And then I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but after that, basically at 9, so just when you're kind of still in your formative years and you're moving into the teenage years, I moved to Saudi Arabia. But I was in a very kind of like liberal international mixed school, and my like home life was also the same because we live in compounds. That's where all the expats live there, and that's like a mini. It could be like America or any other place in the world that's like the free world. You know, like you can swim, you can ride quad bikes, you can do whatever, everything that you can't do outside those walls in Saudi Arabia, you could do within them. So ironically, moving to like the Holy Land and even going and visiting it during that phase of my life from about 9 to 16 is when I started to like become a lot more liberal and a lot more I understood so much more about Islam because I met people from so many different sects of Islam which I didn't even really know about before. I was just told, you know, like we're Sunni, everybody else is bad, the Shias are wrong, the Ahmadis aren't Muslims, like just bad things. And then when I moved to Saudi, I met, you know, Shias, I met like people who were like from this place in Lebanon where they basically have religions which are a mesh of Christianity and Islam. And I was like, this is insane. I didn't know all of this existed. And then I saw how even my Shia friends kind of weren't able to be open about them being Shia in Saudi Arabia because they're, you know, they're kind of discriminated against there. So they would have to go and do things in secret. And then I'd go to Mecca and stuff quite a lot. And obviously I still like was so happy in my heart that God has placed us in a country where we could be so close to, you know, his home, and I just felt blessed in that way. But because you'd hear the call to prayer and you'd see like the Islamic police was still around when I was there, and I'm getting older, and so the requirements are getting stricter and stricter. Like I have to wear a baya now. I'm not allowed to be seen outside with guys, so you can't chill in like a co-ed group. There's no concept of you getting like a provisional license or taking driving lessons. You can't even go to the cinema. So a lot of restrictions started to like build up, and you do get like thinking even as a teenager. And I think that's when I started coming a little bit more all the like the conviction I had for religion in England was kind of like diminishing in Saudi.
Wow, wow. That would be, yeah, that would be really, really interesting for the people who say, you know, that we end up on this path because we live in the corrupt West and what have you. But it sounds like one of the big turning points for you was when you were actually in Saudi itself. So that's really interesting. I
Yeah,
was going to
definitely.
ask, so do you think that that exposure to, I guess, the different facets of Islam and realizing how dynamic and broad and diverse, you know, that umbrella term of Islam actually is. Do you feel like that was part of the reason that you kind of went down that pathway towards questioning and doubting?
I think so because of, you know, even when you have like the inner like I still very much believed in like Allah and that I was like a Muslim and maybe Islam was the truth. But it does get you thinking because even living in Saudi, I'd see all these like as you said, I'd see like these diverse groups and like Muslims from various backgrounds. But then I'd also see Saudi Arabia like taking Islam insanely seriously where, you know, like women are marginalized. And I would see like you drive past, you see villas where you've got four like identical segments of the villa, and you know exactly that like this is a one man four wife situation and he's providing exactly the same for them. And then you'd hear of like Chop Square in Riyadh where people get beheaded, and they'd get beheaded even in the city I lived in after Friday prayers. So these things kind of get you thinking. And then my parents would tell me that that's like Wahhabism and that's like Saudi, you know, just like kind of like taking Islam and taking it to like a very, very next level, which is not the true Islam. So as a child, I kind of just tried to like get that into my head and kind of justify everything I was seeing with like, okay, this isn't Islam. They've just kind of warped it as well. This is insane Wahhabi Islam. But I still was like, okay, maybe the path we're on is the right one. But it does make you think because you're like, if all of these people are claiming that this is Islam and we're doing things differently, then it's just like which one of these? There's so many inherent differences. Because then my parents started like reading about Sufism, and I'd see those books on the bookshelf, and then I picked that up, and I was like, wow, this is also saying that, you know, we're a part of Islam, we're Muslim, but now God is love, and love is God, and you need like a peer or a mentor or somebody to help you, you know, realize your connection with God and all of that. And I was just kind of stumped by how much there was out there.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And that's just Islam itself. Like you go from being a kid and having this idea in your head of, okay, there's one true Islam and like that's it, end of story. It's not more
Yeah.
complicated than that. Then you realize, okay, actually there's like a bunch of stuff that goes under this umbrella term. And then that's just Islam. That's like excluding the fact that there's all these other religions as well. And it brings up that
Yeah.
question of like, well, okay, just because I was born into this one, that can't just mean that it's right. You know, there's all these other options out there. So it definitely gets you thinking. You said before the phrase you used was that you used to cheerlead for Islam, and I so relate to that. That used to be me, what feels like a lifetime ago now. But what you're doing on YouTube with your Holy Humanist channel, I mean, obviously that's a little different from cheerleading for Islam. So, what was like, was there a major turning point for you? And how did you get from that young girl who used to cheerlead for Islam to the ex-Muslim with the Holy Humanist channel?
Yeah, great question to be honest. And it honestly happened over like a number of years. There wasn't like a particular point at all in time, but it was a number of life experiences that actually led me to the point where I'm at now. And you're right, I'm definitely not cheerleading for Islam now. I think I just swapped teams and I've put on the costume for the other team now. But yeah, basically it was a number of life experiences. So as I said, like Saudi Arabia, for example, those kind of issues were just like, they were in the back of my mind constantly. And as I said, I was going to like the holy cities. So you're meant to feel that complete closeness. And, like I saw my granddad's reaction when he saw the Kaaba for the first time. And I didn't naturally shed tears, but I looked at him and thought, oh my God, maybe I'm supposed to be feeling this level of like awe and like spiritual or whatever it is he's feeling, because I'm not right now. I was actually slightly underwhelmed. But anyway, so after leaving Saudi, I was literally like, I think I was 16 years old. So you're on the cusp now of like really kind of wanting to drive and wanting to get out there and kind of, just be a normal teenager, as you would in the West, for example. So we moved to the UAE, and then I thought that was a lot better. And I thought, okay, these people really have got the right balance between like, East meets West and still keeping their Islamic values intact, but also allowing people to live their lives. So I was content with like that version of how things were, like that fit into my worldview for quite a while. But then again, I came back to England for university. That opened my eyes some more, but I was still a believing Muslim. So at university, I actually took a module in Islamic law. And like now I'm just kicking myself because I've written essays like trying to figure out why a woman should be entitled to less inheritance than a man, and like, all of that kind of stuff. So I had even like justified those gender roles in my head to some extent. Um, and then it was kind of more going, so I'm still a believing Muslim, but when I went back to the UAE then as an adult, and then you kind of see like when you're in a real life situation. So by now I'd finished university and I'd had a couple of jobs, then I got married. And that marriage turned out to be like an absolute disaster. There was like, I was very young, I was very naive, I had no idea that things such as like emotional abuse and mental abuse and even financial abuse kind of existed. So I was learning all these things as they were happening to me. And like, again, the power of the internet that saved me when I like searched what was happening to me and why I was thinking in certain ways. But then trying to get out of such a sticky situation where you really want to leave a marriage for your own safety and your own mental health and your own sanity. But just because the man happens to be a Muslim man and you're in a country which operates Sharia law and he's not willing to give you that divorce, you are literally taken and construed as property in every like legal sense. And so he can just like ruin your life on those terms. And everything in the court and everything in the legal system and everything even on that marriage certificate is like by default in the man's favor. So it was only like after going through this horrible experience where, I'd go back and forth to the police and I'd say like I'm being stalked and harassed and this guy won't leave me alone. I've kind of even moved back to my parents' house. So in Islam, like you know, as a woman, I'm sure you know, you're literally just like, you're just waiting. As you're young, you're like your dad's property, and then the second you get married, you're your husband's property. And if you don't have a husband and your dad's passed away, you're either your uncles or your brothers or your grandfathers. Like, you're never in charge of yourself, basically, under Islam. So I fully felt like the intensity of that. Like even just to try and register a divorce at court, they would take you through like Islamic marriage counseling, where they ask you it's so bad. They would ask you like if you feel close to God or not, and how many times you both pray. And, you know, again, because they're so like into this whole Islamic lens of viewing the disintegration of a marriage, and they have no concept of like mental health or like personality disorders. They have no idea even how like these things play out. They don't understand like gaslighting. They don't understand all of these concepts. So in like, again, from the Islamic lens, my ex-husband tried to flip that and say, because I wanted my freedom, I was like possessed, and there was like a jinn on me and all of this. And these actual like Islamic sheikhs who are doing the therapy, they lean towards believing this more than I'm like actually not safe in my own house. Like, I'm fearful for my life. They think there's a problem with you because you refuse to share a house with your husband. And it was so bad that obviously they had put like an arrest warrant on me to forcefully return me to my husband's house, and I can't leave without his permission. And that's just because I tried to separate and go back to my dad's house. So when I got the call saying this is actually a Sharia law that's put on you, it's an ancient Sharia law called Da'a Zawjiyya in Arabic, which refers to the disobedience of a wife. And it comes straight from like Surah Nisa in the Quran, which is simply if you fear disobedience. And I had no idea of this at the time. All I heard was it's a Sharia law, and then they were trying to just like make sure like there was no way I could get a divorce. And then things got like really intense, where, you know, the police were harassing me day in, day out. Four of them even showed up at my villa one day, and again, they're just trying to frame you for things in an Islamic lens, because then the court of law will rule in the man's favor, and then you're literally, once you're back into his house, you are his property and possession. Like, he can do whatever he wants with you. There's no concept of anything. So yeah, things got really bad, and I was still a Muslim. I just thought, these are men, like, you know, they're just abusing their power. These are men just on a power trip. And I know the lengths my ex-husband was trying to go to not let me leave the marriage. So he was even like, he'd almost be like eating, sleeping, breathing the police station, like bribing them. And all of these things can happen like very much under the table in Dubai as well. Like, it's very common. But thankfully, when things got like really bad, and even my lawyer, who was a woman, said, I mean, she understood all the Arabic that was going on. I'm not like as good at Arabic as her. So she actually like pulled me to the side one day and said that this is getting really bad. They're trying to put like any Sharia law they can on you to make sure that you don't leave this country, but also you're forced to go back to your husband's house. And she's like, you need to just leave before they just like keep you here forever. And we've all like, I literally had a moment, you know, when you hear of like Banged Up Abroad or like shows like that, and I was like, there is no way like my life can end like this. So, and that's what, like, the moment you hand over your passport, it's kind of like, you know, game over for you, and then you really have to like get media attention to like get any thing on your case from your home country or whatever. So just when I had literally given up hope and I was almost like done, because every single day going to the police station and dealing with these policemen, and I'd go really respectfully, like in an abaya, I'd be like a really good Muslim woman, I wouldn't talk back, like I was very, you know, I was playing by the rules. They would just pass me on from like officer to officer. They were having fun with it. It was just, it was horrible as an experience in general. And I was just done. Like, I was like almost going to hand over my passport. But I did obviously think that if this is like, now this has all so far been the UAE and their system and their police and their rules and their laws, let me just contact my own home embassy and tell them that this is happening and ongoing with one of their citizens. So I literally called like the British emergency expat number in Dubai, and I wasn't even sure if people answer this number, but somebody answered that day, and I don't know who I spoke to, but this angel of a man literally said, look, you know what? If you've still got your passport in your hand, just get on the next flight home. And I was like, yeah, because they're putting all of these charges on me. And he's like, look, these charges don't even exist where where you're from. Like, just come back, but you know what they can do in this country, and we're not allowed to like legally interfere with another country's processes in that way. So if you haven't handed over your passport yet, just now is the time. And I was just like, yeah, you know what? Like, I literally went straight to the airport after that. But sorry, I literally took that story so long, but
No, I'm completely captivated by the story. Please keep going.
yeah, so it's just basically just to kind of explain what I went through in terms of like how my mind shifted as well. So at this point, again, still I'm just like, this is men, this is police, this is not Islam, this is something that they've pulled out and really warped it. So when I got back to England, obviously, like, it took a while, and I still believed in God and all of that, but I also, like, I was so traumatized from the police. Like, I'd lost faith in men, first of all. That's where I kind of like, I think I directed my issues. I was like, these are men who were really, really just inconsiderate, like power abusing men, kind of, who just want to uphold this patriarchy and keep women in abused marriages and like trap them and, you know, leave them to the best of their husbands or whatever. So I channeled it to that sense, and like the police scared me. I went to therapy, kind of like got over my fear of the sirens. And then when I actually had time to sit and think about it, and kind of like, I was like, what actually happened? Like, what was that? How? Because I've also like kind of, you know, delved into Islamic law, and I'd never, ever, ever seen this be pulled out in the modern kind of like in this day and age at all. So I Googled where this came from, and I was like, what on earth is Thaz Algia, and what is that? And again, thanks to the internet, like, I literally saw it is in Sharia law, and in Egypt, they pretty much like use it now and then when they want to do the same thing and keep women trapped in abusive marriages. But other than that, for the most part, like, the Muslim world and the GCC where I was has pretty much ruled it out. But there are these like horrible, horrible men who are lawyers there who would say, if you want your wife back at any cost, this is what we can throw down. And that's what they tried. So if you've got a lawyer who's willing to play dirty, then, you know, your life is very much like at risk. Because my get out clause was that I did have, like, you know, England to come back to when I had a British passport. That, imagine if I didn't, I don't know, I probably would be in a much, much, much worse situation, which is why I think it's so important that I have like that I cheerlead for the other side, because I've been through that, so I can actually speak for them, because that was my only way out. But yeah, so when I got back to England and I started researching into that, then I obviously knew that, you know, Sharia derives directly from the Quran. That's how it works. It's not like they've pulled this out of thin air. And I was like, okay, let me just go back to the Quran now, like once and for all, as an adult, and let me just see what it says. Because how the Quran that I've read in Arabic and that I've been like, I know about, is like, you know, the Quran which saved little babies from being buried alive, and this is the man that we're following is the first feminist, and he, you know, he was well on his way to ending slavery step by step and all of that kind of nonsense. So I literally pulled up Quran.com in English, and I went to Surah Nisa. I started reading it, and it was the first time I'd actually read it with an adult mind in English, where now the translations have gotten so much better. They're like so crystal clear now, none of that Shakespearean jargon. But I was literally shocked. I was shocked, because thinking then from like just an adult mind, I was like, of course, I could use this verse to keep me trapped. Like, it's a very good strategy. It would work very, very well. It's pretty much there, like clear as day. You can't refute that. And so obviously there's going to be laws which allow you to enable that. But that's kind of where it all disintegrated. But again, I was kind of into for a bit, and I was like, you know, maybe this is just something out of context in the Quran. Like, there's no way. And then when I'd like read enough of the Quran to really kind of get the alarm bells ringing, I was like, well, what about the Prophet? He would never have allowed this. He would never let women to, you know, let women be in like a fearful environment or kind of sanction any of this. So then I went to the Hadith and to the Prophet's biography to read more about his life and like his sayings. And that's when it just like, that's when it just went from bad to worse. I was like, what is this? This is an absolute shambles. This is bad. Like, I remember having the realization that this isn't just something that you can read and then kind of just get on with your life. This is bad to the point where you need to like tell people this is really, really dark. So yeah, that was kind of the shift.
That's a big, big shift. And can I just say, oh my goodness, after everything that you have been through, and you're still so young, right? But you've already been through so much more than so much more than other people out there could ever imagine going through, in their entire lifetime. But not only have you overcome that, which obviously took a lot of courage and strength, I mean, you took it that step further and you're actually using your platform and your story to help others. And I think that speaks a lot about your character as well. And I'm really just in awe of women like you who have that level of bravery. I think it's incredible.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
No, please. Something that I've always thought was very interesting is the way that women and men obviously experience Islam very differently. And I think for me, like, even though I grew up, as a devout Muslim, and I wanted to be like you, I wanted to be that good Muslim girl, there was still a part of me growing up that could recognize these really basic inequalities. Okay, why is my brother allowed to do that and I can't do that? Um, what I'm hearing from your story is that even after experiencing the absolute worst application of misogyny derived from Islamic texts, you were still a devout believer. You were still in that mindset of, okay, well, that's not Islam. This is, that's bad people. Um, is it accurate for me to say that the one of the key shifts that sort of led you to realize that, maybe this is Islam was the Quran itself? Would you say that played a big part in it?
Yeah, no, most definitely. Like I love the way you said that because that's true. You see the inequalities all around you and you see it from like, when you're yay high and you just see the difference in treatment and you see the difference in their accountability and their lifestyle choices as well. But yeah, you're right. I and that's the thing I think is a problem because this is the hold that Islam has on you. So even right till the end, where you're seeing this and you're experiencing the misogyny firsthand, like I'm sure we both, I know you've experienced it firsthand in a Pakistani family as well.
I don't know if
Clear.
you can still hear me. Oh, sorry, you just froze for a
Yes, I
second.
can. Sorry, am I back?
Yeah, yep, sorry, you're back. Keep
Okay.
going.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I think you internalize it to a large extent, and I think that's what I had done. So for a while, it's like cognitive dissonance, and you kind of like repress and put a blindfold on all the bits that you don't like, and you're like, I'm still a believer. But you're right. The second where I saw it in the Quran for itself, that's when I like if somebody said to me, that's what happened to you is exactly what Islam propagates. My whole thing to look and read the Quran was so I could stand up for my faith and say, no, that was these men, this is them that don't like this, has no reflection on my religion. But when my own God is saying that to me in the book, he's telling me, like, this literally could not be any clearer, like, you have the right to beat your wife. Like, there is certain gender roles there. It's if you fear disobedience, how can I unsee that? And how can I defend that? So when I lost the ability to defend my own faith, because no matter how different we are in terms of like the different sects of Islam, like my thinking then was the one thing that we all have in common is the Holy Quran. This is the one thing that binds us all together. And if this is the unchanged, unaltered, eternal word of God, then I need to take this for what it is. And there was no way I could put context into if you fear disobedience and all of the misogyny. You can put as much context as you like behind it, but if you actually go and look into the context, it gets worse. And that's when I was like, holy crap, even this context isn't working in its favor. It just showed me how terrible of a character Muhammad was. And
Mm.
therefore, it is in line with what I'm reading in the Quran. Like, because I kind of half expected one to save the other, but that didn't happen at all. Like, they both were just like, this is bad. So, yeah, the fact that it came down to the very source itself, which is undisputable, for me meant the foundation had crumbled. And that's when I was
Mm.
like, either this is true and I fully go with this, or either this is completely man made and it's not true. And at that point, I was at such a stage in my life where I just had to follow like my logical train of thought and just not lie to myself anymore.
Mm. It's crazy, isn't it, how overcomplicated people will make this whole issue, when it really is as straightforward as, if this is Allah's perfect final message. This is, the actual literal word of God. This book should be perfect. We should not be having the issues that we are having with it. Like, it's not that hard to see that. It's not. Anyway, it just baffles me. But
Yeah, totally.
I was going to say as well, with when it comes down to the translation of the verses, because like you said, the first sort of excuses that people are going to start throwing out is, well, the context, and oh, that's the wrong translation, and you can't read Arabic, or whatever they say. And the most frustrating part is that they take these very real issues, like women like you who have been through things like abusive marriages and Islamic scripture being used to perpetuate these abusive marriages. And these people want to come and make the issue about incorrect translations. And when they do that, they are just completely writing off the fact that that is so irrelevant, right? The issue here is the women who are suffering as a direct result of your Allah's perfect final word,
Yeah.
and they just completely detract from the victims of the scripture and make it about them and make themselves the victims. And it is so, so frustrating. So I think that's where voices like yours come in and are so important to say, look, I was a Muslim woman. I actually lived through the implications of this scripture. Why don't you let me speak my truth for a change? So it is it's just crazy.
Yeah,
What
no,
what
I
would you
agree.
say? Sorry, I'm cutting you off there.
No, go for it.
I was just going to ask, what would you say to the women who sit down, read the Quran in English cover to cover, and want to come and tell you that it's a feminist text and that there is no misogyny in there at all? What would you say to them?
To be honest, I'd be a little bit baffled by that statement and to begin with. Like, I don't, this is what gets me. I don't understand how you could read that in a conscious state in your own mother tongue, whatever it may be, whatever your first language is, whatever language you're comfortable in, how you can read that, because you know the commands that it has for women in it. I don't know how you can read a book that says that you get less inheritance than your brother, and you have the right to be hit, and it's better for you to stay home, and you should cover. And then you read the backup scriptures if you're trying to look for context, and it says that women are going to be the majority in hell, and women are deficient in intelligence, and that such things. If you can come at me with a feminist argument and say how that is empowering you, please do, because I really don't understand, unless you're reading it and your mind is in la la land, or you've got some next level cognitive dissonance button you can push. You can see the strife and the kind of daily fights and struggles these women in the Islamic world have. Like, look at Egypt, for example. Like, so many of the women there, especially from the older generation, actually believe that they deserve to be beaten. This isn't just like, this is not just something that they're born with. This is something they've been fed and normalized over and over again. And Islam actually has this sanction. There's not many other actual scriptures out there which say go beat your wife if you just fear that she's going to be disobedient. I mean, she doesn't even have to do anything. Islam gives you the right to just beat her before she's even done anything. That's a level of control there. So yeah, I mean, when they say that book is feminist, and then you just, all you need to do is open your eyes and look around at the Islamic world. Why are women in the West so much more free and empowered and able to live their life? I can wear a hijab tomorrow if I want to. Nobody's going to turn around and judge me. But by the same token, I also cannot wear it, and nobody has the right or will turn around and judge me. But that's not the case for those women in Islamic countries. So how you can put feminism and Islam together, I don't know. I think that's one of the biggest oxymorons. And that's why my first video was just Islam and feminism. There's no such thing as a Muslim feminist. There's no such thing. Unless you've
Absolutely.
abandoned everything that Allah stands for, and then they are not Muslim anymore, really.
Exactly. The term Muslim feminist is definitely an oxymoron in itself, a very ironic one at that. And I think as
Definitely.
well, the flip side of the argument, right? So you've got this group who are trying to convince everyone that Muhammad is the first feminist and Islam loves women and what have you. Then you have the other group who are like, feminism is bad.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
we have to be taken care of by men. That's good for us. And Islam is like the right way, and the West is evil. Um, and I kind of understand it when these women are coming from Muslim countries. You know, they've grown up in a society where it's not just their family indoctrinating them, but it's, you know, their friends, it's their school, it's their government, it's literally the whole country. And so I can understand that people in that situation have that more narrow view set of human rights and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The thing that I don't get, though, is especially converts, Western converts, who adopt the view that, you know, they're born and raised in the West, but they are totally against what they call Western feminism, and they are convinced that Islam is better for them, and that's the way to go. Um, have you ever met women like that? And if not, what are your sort of theories about how they end up in that sort of a position?
Yeah, so to be honest, I haven't, because my actual close friend circle obviously wouldn't comprise of many Muslims at this point. Or if they're Muslims, they're very lax Muslims. But yeah, I know the exact kind of women that you're talking about. And to be honest, I think the same way that, like Muslim feminists, from, let's say, even from like the Muslim world, think that Islam does still empower them at some level. I think this is just a complete like flip of that, where these women have been distressed or hurt or not been given justice from the Western system in their eyes, and the Western kind of like lifestyle. And they've probably been affected by it at some level, and therefore your natural reaction to some kind of life event, or even even trauma, or um, yeah, or like a void even in your life, means that you would completely want to take what you see around you and choose almost the exact opposite of it, where you're a lot more kind of compartmentalized, and the roles are defined, and you're and Islam is very good like that, because it can appeal to Western women by feeding them the most kind of fluffy, cute bits of Islam, to the point where they could make a woman having to cover up be like, this is how much we respect you. Like, nobody can look at you besides me. Like, do you understand? Like, how, that's such an honor. You're just mine. And for some women, that's the kind of safety and security that they're looking for. And that's where they're genuinely feeling that they're more respected, as opposed to when, they were probably walking down the street in the West because of something or the other that could have triggered that way of thinking. So it's very easy to see how, when you are sold Islam from people who know exactly what they're talking about, but they know exactly what to say to really hit those nerves, and they're literally just playing on your kind of vulnerability in that moment. And I think that's exactly what's happening when you are vulnerable, or you are kind of angry, or you are upset with a system. You are vulnerable, and you will latch on to a completely different worldview where you're almost guaranteed safety. But I would say that in the case of Islam, that's very false, that safety net, because it's only then when those women go through things like, I mean, probably similar to what I went through, but if some of those women eventually do get married to a Muslim man and then end up trying to leave that marriage, or the man changes, or he starts putting all these restrictions on her after she's had children, or not to work, or not to go out, that's when reality comes crashing down on them, because they realize that Islamically they can't just worm their way out of it as they would in a secular system, or if they had Western laws apply to them. So I think that becomes a big reality check. But yeah, I think just the way that, like, there was a meme on Twitter, or like a clip of a video, where this Islamic preacher guy was like telling the benefits of Islam to this woman, and she converted like there and there on the spot. She took the shahada, and she went to hug him to like celebrate, and he went, no, 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 we've got shit. And I was like, it's already clicked in for her how bad this is. Like, and now a hug is off limits for this poor woman, had no idea what she was getting into. But in that moment, they just tell you the things that you want to hear, and unfortunately, a lot of women fall for it.
Yeah, I think there's such a great degree of manipulation involved when it comes to enticing Western women, and it always comes down to these ideas of, Islam is going to treat you like a queen because we want to shield you and protect you, and like we don't want your booty pictures on Instagram. No, no, we're better than that, or whatever.
Yeah, we don't want
And
flies to swarm you. You're like that perfect covered lollipop.
right, right. Oh my
Yeah.
God, the lollipop one is the death of me. Like, please, I don't even
Honestly,
want to think about it.
it's so bad.
And they just keep using it over and over. Like, how many times do we need to explain this to you? But anyway,
I
now I'm just
know.
getting angry.
Even the upgrades are crap. They're not even coming up with anything like interesting now. It's just the same thing. It's a bunch of sweets,
Well,
lollipop. What was the other one I saw recently? I forgot. It was something else, but something flies are attracted to again.
oh my God. It's just like, have you seen the videos of like the dour guy who starts crying because he's so emotionally distressed by women who go to clubs and like don't wear their hijab, and like
Oh my
that right
God, no, but
there.
that makes me really happy that that stuff distresses him that much.
Right? Like, please,
Yes.
I'm gonna make my hair extra
I
curly
know, I
today if
might go
it
out
helps
tonight
you.
now, Infidel Noodle, just to piss him off.
But like, how manipulative is that? This guy is intentionally filming himself crying in HD, putting this on YouTube, all to guilt trip women, all to make women think that he cares about them, right?
It's
And it's just,
ridiculous. I wonder what his like internet search history was. Let's just put that into the equation and see how much he cares about women.
right? I don't
Honestly,
even.
don't trust these people with a barge pole.
And I mean, as a woman, as an ex-Muslim woman that has come forward, I mean, you've gone, all out public, you're showing your face, you're putting your whole truth out there. What has your experience been like with these fantastic men who care so deeply about women and their religion? Have they been showing you how you should be treated like a queen?
Well, yeah, first of all, I just want to say I know how much they've been showing you the kind of royal treatment that they would want to give you in Islam. And I just want to say a massive hats off because and yeah, to answer your question, nothing like on the level of maybe because I am kind of just a bit more, I've just started out, I'm a bit more low key and I stay off a lot of platforms, by the way. Like the only two I give out is YouTube and Twitter. Everything else I try and keep really because I don't want that in my head. Like I've seen the things that you've had to read, and that's why I really, really like I need to get like a massive hats off that you carry on going because I know how this also impacts even like men who speak out. And I've got a couple. I've got some. I got a couple of tasters of what you've been through, but thankfully, honestly, because I know you've been very, very public about it. And every time you have been, I've been seeing that. And I'm like, whoa, like, I'm like, that's too much. But because of how much you consistently kind of keep going and you keep calling them out and you keep putting it out there, that almost had a knock on effect to harden me up. So I really, really appreciate you doing that. Because yeah, I've got the occasional ones come through, and I just obviously like block straight away. I don't entertain or engage this behavior at all. But it's horrible in the moment. Like when you read especially as a woman, what they're actually thinking in a perfect world they could or would want to do to you, it's literally like it makes you sick to your stomach. But yeah, again, on in terms of like this movement and the things that women have to face, and I think you were one of the first to speak out. So this is like actually more of an honor for me because you spoke out and you fought and you took on the TikTok crowd, mate. That's not easy. I stayed well off that platform and I've seen like the stuff and even when Ali Dawah went for you, like he made it his life's mission to go for you. It's like just honestly get a life, like do your thing. Why are you coming after a girl halfway across the world? Like it's just so it's just so extra. But yeah, honestly, thank you so much because you have no idea how many I'm obviously telling you this now because I'm vocal and we're having the chance to speak, but so many other women or girls who might not even be vocal, but they just see you standing up to and resisting and answering back and giving them what for and not kind of shying away from this behavior. It really, really like gives the whole movement and every woman in it courage.
Oh my God, okay. I wasn't ready for any of that. This is supposed to be your interview, and we're supposed to hear all about you, not you talking about me.
Hashtag real
But
talk.
thank you. God,
No,
this
you're
has turned
very
into like a
welcome.
heart to heart. This is quite lovely.
I swear, every
No,
time women
thank
talk, it's
you.
like therapy anyway, I think.
That's true. That's true. These streams always get a little bit, yeah, they get pretty deep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when I first started, even like I had done my first interview with Abdullah Samir, and I remember him, he's someone who's been doing this for a long time, like for years. And I
Yeah.
remember even him saying, I don't get that level of abuse. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's because you're a woman. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay. Didn't expect that, but whatever. So on that note, I mean, when you came forward, when you went public with the fact that you're an ex-Muslim, with your criticisms of Islam, I mean, in addition to like the misogynistic side of the abuse, did you feel like the abuse that you got in general, did that have an impact on the way that you see the Muslim community at all?
So in terms of how the abuse was kind of really like inherently misogynistic, is that what you're referring to? What in Dubai and stuff?
So like, I mean, the abuse since you've come out publicly, so like the
Oh.
backlash that you've gotten, do you feel like that changed the way that you see Muslims as people or as a community?
Um, to be honest, it's just there's like way more of a divide now because you see like when you step out of this, you see how problematic elements of that community are. But again, you don't like you can't just paint everybody with that same paintbrush because like for example my entire family are Muslim, and so like I love them, I love the people around me, but yeah, as you're saying, because now I don't even have that concept of like a man's defined role or a man being the breadwinner and a woman staying home, and like the other like honor culture or like the concept of kind of like saving your body or hiding it just for your husband. But these are all like very much ground held beliefs in the community, which I mean, even though I don't want to challenge them in every single confrontation with my family or whatever, you just see the kind of divide. But then the fact that, as you said, the level of hate and like the kind of just the things that come out from the Muslim community, especially level towards women, and they know what they're doing when they're saying these things like deliberately to women. That kind of makes you really think that this is like just an extension of like the sick mentality that the Quran itself and the Hadith and the Prophet and his companions and their entire lifestyle perpetuates. And this has just become normal for them. So I obviously see that there's a massive, massive divide, but you also it makes me feel good because I feel like when we have conversations like this, even women to women, and in with every single woman ex-Muslim woman that speaks out, it actually irks these guys even more than when men speak, and they come on and they go onto the men's channels and they all thump their chest and they like have these scientific debates and stuff. But if a woman literally just says, oh, by the way, I don't like the Quran, it's not for me, that gets under their skin, and I love it. And I think that's why you experienced what you did as well, because as I said, you were literally one of the first that I had ever come across, women speaking out on TikTok, and they had to level their anger somewhere, and you were literally like that like walking target for them on TikTok because you're speaking out, you're using your voice, and even if there's like 10 men speaking out there, that one woman deserves their attention. Do you know what I mean? That's the threat. That's where things are really shaky now. Islam is on the rocks.
They do. They squirm in the face of ex-Muslim women. And
Yeah.
sometimes I can't tell if they genuinely hate us or if they have some kind of like weird ex-Muslim fetish because they get so obsessive about ex-Muslim women. They just dedicate this significant portion of their day to like finding out what we're doing and trying to contact us. It's so weird.
And the best thing is when you're like, I don't know if you hate me or you actually feel sorry for me, because when they're like, oh, I will marry Nuria and bring her back to Islam. Well,
I know.
well,
Or Ali Dawah being like, yeah, this is going to be the best noodle I've ever had. Like, what do you mean by that? What are you trying to say
jeez.
right now?
It's so mad.
I
It's
don't want
so
to be your
messed up.
noodle.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Who even
Oh.
oh my God, it's so bad. Because that's the thing with this Muslim crowd. I know obviously like as women we can speak about it. That's why I'm saying I literally see something and I just block and get rid of it. But every single interaction has like sexual innuendo or like threatening sexual innuendo like under it. Do you know what I mean? And it's just if you can't even have like a conversation, I'm actually more willing to engage in like if you want to say like let's talk about women in Islam, let's talk about it. But don't put in subtle like sexual threats or try and scare women that way. It's not going to happen. You're just making us get even more sickened by you.
And not just us, like you're making everyone who's witnessing this so sickened by you, and like you're not representing your religion very well, you know?
Yeah, which is why I love it when you literally screenshot that and you put it out there for the world to see because honestly, they are their own downfall and all you're literally doing is highlighting exactly what's going on in here and what they're saying. So it's literally outing their characters, and that's I think that's something we should keep doing. And I think I would start doing that as well. I obviously like didn't, I just thought like maybe if I just stay away from this, I can just keep deleting these things and not think about them. But I think your strategy is it's a lot more powerful because let them be their own demise. Let people see what they actually talk like when, behind closed doors, so to speak, or like what they
Mm.
slip into your DMs with.
Yeah, it's just the thing that I don't get is like the whole irony of it, right? Is that they are pissed off with us because we left Islam, because we talk about Islam, right? Because like apparently they care about Islam so much, but then their behavior and the way that they act towards us, it's like, and how is this pleasing Allah? Like, if would you not make Allah happier if you go and read some Quran and go and do something like that? But yet you're here spending so much time on people who have left the religion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
don't know.
Infidel Noodle. It's because they have lost two childbearers. They're not expanding the ummah the way they would have if you and I were still there. And also, there's that massive fear that, like, one woman gets out, she could free another two, who could then free another two, who could then free. They're so scared of this domino effect where we can just like level with each other, have shared experiences, and say, do you know what I found Islam to be inherently misogynistic. It's like it's very, very like demeaning for women. And somebody else saying, you know what, I found that out too. Those two people talk and that shit, like the wave, the sheer like wave of this tsunami could just happen. And that's what they're really scared about. They want to keep us all in Islam. You're meant to be that silent, obedient, subservient woman. By having this conversation right now, we are literally the epitome of the opposite of that. And that's a massive fear. Like there's even this one like school of thought that I was reading, their take on apostate women, and they have no ruling for it because they couldn't imagine that any woman would ever apostatize. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. They very much
Wow.
underestimate us.
Yeah, yeah. And can I just say, because I know that if they're not watching now, they will eventually. So to all the Dower boys, the fanboys out there who are very keen for this stream, I just want to confirm with absolute certainty that the domino effect is happening and that Nuria and I are both getting messages from former Muslim women all the time. Like it takes one voice to inspire a new way of thinking in someone's mind, and that's all that that women in the Muslim world need. They need that one person to tell them, hey, maybe you do deserve better than everything Islam is trying to say you're worth.
Literally just
So
before this stream, I'll actually share it on Sunday as well, but I'll hide the name. But this woman just messaged me saying she's been on this journey for 6 years of like figuring out what her faith. Today, she's taking off her hijab completely. She's doing it in front of the extended family. She's telling everyone, and she's like, I want to live my authentic truth. I just wanted to let you know today is the day. So I'm gassed this morning.
woohoo! Well, if she's
Yeah.
watching this, congratulations. I hope that that went well. It is so freaking scary to take your
Mhm.
hijab off. Actually, on that note, in terms of you, because I know you said that you put hijab on at the age of 9. What was it like for you in terms of like the reaction from friends and family and community when you actually took it off for the first time?
To be honest, it was more the mosque community that I was worried about because obviously I had like made such a like impression and a name for myself within that. And like, you know, my granddad was so proud of me, and I had gone to school representing it and kind of like demonstrating Islamic prayers and everything in class. So I'd like become known as like this representative Muslim. But then I think thankfully, because I was so young, and I still decided like within that time frame that actually at the same time that I really want to please God, I'm also like I love playing sports. And thankfully I didn't want to give up on that. And then I just, for practicality reasons, I was like, this isn't working for me anymore. It takes 5 minutes out of my day to get this pin perfect, tie it. Like I'm giving my mum like the worst time every morning, poor woman. So yeah, the reaction from, honestly, in my experience again is very unique in the sense that my immediate family were a bit relieved that I'd taken it off, because they just thought that at 9 years old that was not a decision that I was ready to make, which I really appreciate. Because I mean, even within my own like family, I know cousins who were actually like forced to wear it at that age, and had they wanted to do what I did, it would have been a different situation. So I'm so grateful that, you know, my parents kind of put education and letting me kind of live my life in front of like this duty that they just thought it was way too young for a 9-year-old to do this for the rest of her life.
Mm.
And I think there's some cultural implications as well, because for my, like, when Pakistani families, all they really think about since you're born is like your marriage. So I think my grandma was more like, this is better because she'll have more options. Whereas if your future husband wants you to wear hijab, then they really force you to. It's so twisted, man. But yeah, so she probably thought like her range of options is going to be more open if she doesn't wear hijab, and then if she wants to when she's like 15, 16, then, you know, let her do that. But it was more kind of the mosque. I felt like I'd dropped a couple of notches in their eyes for sure.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it really gets, especially the men, it really gets them shaking when a girl shows her hair for some odd reason. So, do your family know now that you've actually left Islam altogether, or?
Yeah, I mean, my immediate family do, yeah. So like just my parents and my siblings, but everybody else, I would never dare to say it to them just yet. Like if they find my YouTube channel, then that's a different story. It will have to come out. But like I was very careful on Twitter and stuff as well to kind of get all my religious family members and cousins and everyone off before I started. Obviously this is my truth, and I want to like help women and give a voice to those women who are trapped in situations like I was in, or just, you know, by Islam in general. But there's I'm literally the first person in my family to say I'm an apostate, and to say that I use the word ex-Muslim, and then to speak about it and to show my face. There's like nobody in my family has ever kind of said anything against Islam. And it still is, because that, like, you know, top down, it's very conservative still. So I mean, there were a couple of times when I was just living alone with my grandma, and I did challenge, like, not even challenge, I just asked questions about, like, Muhammad's married to Aisha, and we would have conversations about, like, you know, if God was there, then who created God, or what are we going to do eternally in heaven? Won't we get bored? We'd have like these deep conversations, but the second that I casted a tiny shadow of doubt on why Muhammad married a 6-year-old, it was like I just saw the attitude shift completely. Like every day I was being told, look, you're never going to be happy until you love the prophet. Why did you say that about him? And I was like, I'm just asking a question. But they were like, no, you're never going to succeed. You're never going to have happiness. You need to love the prophet. And that's when I was like, this is such a sensitive issue. And especially when you go to the Quran, like I could show my parents hadiths all day long, but they would just say, no, 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 no. Okay, that's wrong. That's a lie. That's this. But when it comes to the Quran, they just want to shut the conversation down completely. So yeah, I don't think they're ready for that just yet.
Mhm. So they know that you've left, but it sounds like, it's not really something that you guys talk about per se. Would that be right?
Yeah, for the most part, yes. So we coexist. They're more than happy for me to like think the way I think, and we can have conversations about it. But I also won't push it to the point where I know that I'm gonna hurt them in any way.
Mm.
But they're also very much like, obviously it has a knock-on effect. Like when I talk to my siblings as well, even my parents, I've seen them order a couple of books now to try and defend certain things that they might have heard me say. So you see like these small things happening and you're like, okay, this is really good, even if we're not having a one-on-one conversation, just like as a byproduct of what I'm doing. Or like for example, I have this book here. I'm sure everyone in my family's seen it. You have to see this. It's the Woman's Quran.
Oh.
And it's basically blank. So everyone open this to be like, what's in it? There's nothing in it because there's nothing good in this for us. But little things like this, they've got mementos all over the house on like my lack of faith in Islam.
Oh, that's so awesome. And that is the change that I hope we can start moving towards as a whole worldwide Muslim community, is just normalizing the fact that, hey, it's cool if you're Muslim as long as you're cool if I, don't want to be Muslim. And I
Yeah.
think until we start seeing more of that basic reciprocation of respect that obviously your family gives you, we're just going to be stuck in this not terrible, but this unproductive space. And finding ways to move forward from that is so hard. But definitely, people like your parents and your family, they are the ones who are going to embody that change in this world. I
Yeah,
hope
I
that we have
definitely think
more
so.
people like them. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I just want to just follow up on that point you said because that's so important. Like, I think again, I'm in a really that's why I think I am here showing my face and speaking because I'm positioned in such a unique way, which is such a basic thing if you think about it. Like, it's exactly what you're saying, Infidel Noodle. The respect that we give other people to practice or not, they're just offering me that literal same respect back. Like, you can believe whatever you want and I'll defend your right to believe that to the end in the same way I defend their right to believe what they want to till the end. It's literally just mutual respect and understanding so we can coexist. But where the ideas are bad to the point where they take away someone's basic human rights, we will speak up about that, and we'll do that without saying that we're offending, any of our Muslim family or friends' feelings. But you're right, it's literally just if we start from a position of mutual respect, there's just such a better trajectory for how this can go as opposed to being like, super hostile and being offended by everything we say.
Mm. And it's hard though. It's so hard to establish that kind of mutual respect when the book, the one God's final message guiding this entire community, is inherently hateful towards
Yeah.
people who don't believe, like
Yeah.
it's not, I guess it shouldn't come as such a surprise that there is that degree of hostility when the Quran is like obsessed with us. I mean, how
Yeah.
many times does it mention disbelievers, right? Like it's pretty obsessive about it.
Yeah. That's
So
why
I
I
think
say,
we
like,
can get that.
honestly, I think it's because like most Muslims or most of the ones that I know I'm surrounded by are actually, without even knowing it, they're way better than Islam. Like, they don't know the sickness that Islam like embodies, and therefore they are just way better people than what they even believe. So because my parents probably don't know every single little bit of the Quran, they like when we watch the news together, they'll be as disgusted and horrified in the exact same way by what they see as I am. Yet their belief in a religion which is so sick and toxic, all those beliefs are there, but they probably just are unaware of them to a certain extent, and they are better than what their God preaches. And that's what I'm so thankful for, because if they weren't, because they're just good people who value human rights and don't think people should be killed for what they think or say, that's just so basic. But that's literally as simple as is. They are better than Islam. And it's not
Mm.
hard to be better than Islam, to be honest. You just it's really not. The bar is very low.
Yeah, if you believe that people shouldn't be killed for leaving a religion, you're probably better than Islam. So yeah, the bar
You
is not
100%
high.
are. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's part of the problem as well. And I think like I know that for people who have left other religions, like I know ex-Mormons, ex-Jews, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, I know they also, of course, face a degree of hostility from, the believers in their group. I think especially, no, since doing activism, like I don't think I was aware of this at all before, but since doing activism, I think I've realized that like the magnitude of hatred towards disbelievers in the Muslim community is unique to the way
Yeah.
that it looks in other religious communities. Like it is not comparable. I have ex-Mormons and what have you telling me like, wow, I thought what we go through is bad, but like that's pretty messed up. Why do you
Wow.
think that is? Why do you think that these sorts of issues are so common in the Muslim community?
I think it's honestly just comes down to how like in nature violent Islam is and how derogatory it is. Like this is again, that's why I'm saying like the Quran is was the cutoff for me, because not only is it inherently misogynistic, but which God speaks with like so much hatred in his heart. So there's so much hate speech in there for not like disbelievers, whether you're Christian, you're Jew, the polytheist gets some extra level of hate. Um, but there's so much, it's so insightful and it's so vengeful and it's full of hate that it's really easy to understand what where they get this like almost feeling of this disgusted feeling by the other. The Quran actually like commands you to like subjugate these people and have them under your control and be kind of, again, subservient, pay you taxes just for them to exist. So when this very God is against coexistence himself and literally wants the expansion of Islam and the subjugation of disbelievers, it's so, and because the way of life, like Islam controls absolutely everything. Like I remember when I'd be young and walking back from Quran, the mosque with my granddad, and we'd pass like a pub, he'd be absolutely like repulsed. He'd point to it and say, "These people are like the devil, like this is where devils go." And I was just like, and as a child, imagine if I was to really internalize and believe that, like, oh, these like alcohol drinking, like white people, they're like the devil, like you know, our way is the right way. That's very, very easy to kind of start believing once you're told that day in, day out, once your scriptures reinforce that, and then you see their lifestyle, and then I mean it's so weird because the West is progressing far more than the Islamic countries, but all they try and look at and point at is the decadence, and that's such an easy target to say, oh, they're immoral, blah blah blah. But look at your own Islamic countries, you know, every single thing is controlled to the way that you like a man that was supposed to take a leak to how many times you to the way you wash your hands. Like obviously if you have such a like what do you call it, like a just such a tunnel vision point of view for the other and the disbeliever, and it's all over your scripture to the point where you're allowed to kill them, right? Kill the disbelievers wherever you find them. That's also in your scripture. It's just so it's I mean the violence just comes off the page and seeps into the mentality from the youngest ages, and that's why Islam is inherently problematic.
I couldn't agree more. And it's, you know, what you were saying about like the fact that most Muslims, I'm going to go, I don't have the data to support this, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say most Muslims are probably better than Islam.
Yeah.
Um, and like even there, I'm in contact with quite a few, you know, of these sort of bigger name Dawa influencers who would never publicly admit that we talk behind the scenes because that is not good for them and, you know, their image and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of them can be like pretty friendly when they're not on camera. And I've had discussions with them, and we've gotten to a point like, you know, where we're on good terms, everything is very respectful. And I say to them, so, do you still believe that I deserve to be killed for my YouTube channel and for being
Mhm.
who I am? And I've had some of them not, you know, not be able to respond, get to a point where they have this moment of realization and see, you know, I actually don't agree with that. And then they come up with the thing of, you know, okay, but even if I don't understand it, Allah knows best and I'll just trust him. And like, it's fine if he says you can die or whatever. But, you know, it's, well, they don't say it like that, but that's basically what it is, right?
I just
And
imagine
it's,
like like a turtle coming out, like just ready, and then just like gone all the way back into the hole.
that's
Like
what it
no,
is.
yeah,
That's what it is. Just so many little turtles out there who are too afraid to, no, wait, I'm thinking of crabs. I was going to say too afraid to
crabs.
find
I
a
think
new
that's
shell. Crab,
yeah, that's
let's
it. Let's do the crab
hermit
analogy.
crabs. That's the word. But yeah, it's crazy, and you can see, you know, that these are obviously just nice, decent, normal people. But they can't let go of the idea that everything they once believed might actually be totally false. Because that's a big mindset shift to go through. You know, one day the world is this way, and suddenly everything you thought you knew is nada. Um,
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you? I mean, to go from, I know everything there is to know, like Islam tells me what I need to know, to having to accept, I don't know everything about the universe. Was that hard for you to go through?
Yeah, to be honest, that was very, very hard, and I think that that's what you're talking about is so true because that's when it like gets really sad, where you know that something's off, you know that something's not right, but Islam has such a hold on you. It's the indoctrination, like, is so heavy from such a young age. That's why I actually feel sorry for like the type of dawah guys that you're talking about. I genuinely feel sorry for them because this is a hold. This is like when Islam becomes cancerous on your mind. Um, yeah, I really empathize with that. Like, but I would say to like take that leap and just take that step out of it. So for me, when I obviously read the hadith and then I read the Quran and I read about the Prophet's life, I went onto YouTube, which is why I think I'm just like repaying what YouTube did for me by speaking on it now. But I went onto YouTube and I like for the first time ever typed "Is Islam the truth?" into YouTube, and I was just ready to like see what was out there. And I watched a couple of videos of like the Masked Arab and Sharif Gabba because they're both like native Arabic speakers. And I didn't want to give anyone else the time of day. I was like, because everyone talks to me about Arabic and context, like, let me go to people who genuinely know it. So when they were speaking, and I could not refute anything they were saying, like, I was pausing that video, I was going to that like surah, I was like, no, 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 he must have missed a word there, like, surely. But no, it all checked out. It all checked out, and to the point where they were saying things like, "Oh, be mindful because the sheikh would tell you that that means that, but no, the actual classical Arabic root is this. So trust your mind and trust what." And I was like, so all of this was like seeping in, and that's when I actually realized that, you know what, holy crap, this is probably most likely not the truth. And if anything, we've been sold, like, I felt so conned and so played, but not just for me. I felt like played for generations. Like, we've all been conned and we're all kind of just part of this farce, and we're believing this. Why? Because the people like out the generation before us did. And I was sitting at my grandma's house and there was like an Allah and Muhammad like thing on either side of the wall, and I swear, like, I looked at that and I was like, that would never be the same. But completely as you described it, I felt like the rug was pulled from under my feet, and I actually, like, I lay awake in bed for a good couple of days being like, okay, so if Islam isn't the truth, then like, where do I start? Like, what does that leave me with? Who am I as a person? What do I believe? And then I, like, obviously as well being a Pakistani, because Islam, like, our whole country was born out of Islam. You're also like, oh, how does that affect my Pakistaniness now? Like, where does that go? So you have this whole kind of like existential crisis where you kind of rebuild your life and your sense of morale. Like, I had to build a moral compass from the beginning, but then I realized it's not that hard, because even as a Muslim, I fully believed it, but I had friends who were gay, and I knew my God wanted to send them to hell, but I didn't think it was right to send them. Like, in my heart, my heart hadn't changed. You know what I mean? But now I
Mhm.
could think for myself without like God's command on what I think should be right and wrong. So when I removed that, and then I literally was like, what do I stand for and what do I believe? And then it was just simple. Like, that's where humanism comes into play. I just believe that every single being is entitled to their basic rights. So if my opinion infringes your basic human right to live or do anything, then my opinion is wrong. So all the Islamic opinions that I had that were derived from Allah, when they took away someone's rights or infringed them, I knew I had to like dash that. So with Islam, this sounds really bad. With Islam, I dashed all that crap. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it all went, all that skewed morality that I had to have. So once I got over the crisis and kind of like rebuilding, like, okay, this is my moral compass. You're basically the same person you were. Just now take away like Allah's judgment from all of this. And actually that opens you up to loving people more now. I can do it like wholeheartedly. I don't have to live with cognitive dissonance that I'm chilling with this friend today, but you're going to burn in hell forever because of your lifestyle. I literally can just chill and be in the moment and not care and not worry. So yeah, it is a massive like existential crisis does hit you. It can also, like, you can spiral, you can kind of go into depression, you can go to a very dark place, because you'll also remember the only person that's thinking like that. So if I hadn't found YouTube and I hadn't had Twitter, I thought I was the only person who thought like this. So for a second, you do think you're crazy, especially because of everything that happened with me in Dubai. And like, my mind was just clapped at some points. He tried to like really mess with you. So when again you've discovered this supposed truth and everyone around you is praying and doing dua and playing with the like doing their dua on that thing, holding like these Quran sessions and talking about it and Islam TV, and you're like, no, 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 this is dark, this is wrong, this is horrible. Um, you honestly have to like keep telling yourself that there are the people out there who think like you. And I found a very, very safe space on Twitter where I was like, okay, there are people and they talk about it and they also think that they're the only ones. And then you find a safe space, and that really, really helps. I think now that we live in the time and day and age of the internet, it's really hard to feel lonely. Like you will find people who do think like you, but you just like in that moment where your life is shattering because Islam isn't the truth, if you just push that bit further out of it, honestly on the other end is such liberation.
I couldn't agree more. And like I was just thinking about this the other day as well, like how you were explaining, that Islam it dictates very specific details of your life, like the most specific details, what foot you enter a toilet with,
Yeah,
what you say when you sneeze, all these crazy, crazy rules.
yeah,
Um, to go from that very structured, defined way of life to, all right, go do whatever the hell you want. It's a shock, right? There's a huge adjustment period there. And I always say to people, leaving Islam is the first step. You don't just leave Islam and then wake up one day and everything's fantastic. It's an ongoing process. And for some people, that can, everyone's going to take their own time to get through that journey, and that's okay. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of people think that when they hit that sort of that dark, depressive place, they start to get these thoughts of like, well, this is happening to me because I did the wrong thing. I was wrong and I left the
yeah,
one for religion. It's just this spiral of indoctrination, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, and if we didn't have YouTube, if we didn't have these platforms to speak and meet each other, I think I still would have been in that space of, thinking that I was crazy, and that
yeah,
I was the only one that thought like that.
same.
Um, so at what point for you did you discover, this term ex-Muslim? When did that become like a real thing in your life?
So when I actually was looking into the whole Da'a Zawjiyah situation, and like really I think I spent a good like 8 9 months of my life where all I would do was I'd wake up to research Islam, eat, sleep, and do the same thing again. Like I was just on one. And it was in that time, the same kind of time where I was researching Is Islam the Truth on YouTube. Naturally, like I think I came across an ex-MNA, so ex-Muslims of North America Association, one of their talks. And I just saw the word ex-Muslim, and I just saw a panel of essentially ex-Muslims in America talking. And I was like, what? They just openly say this. Like these are just what like self-proclaimed apostates and no one's like cut their head off. What? And I was so shocked. And they had obviously gathered momentum by then at this point, and they had quite a large followership, but I was just, because these were people like me, they're also, a lot of them are from a Pakistani ethnic background, and a lot of them are like the similar age, and they've come to the same realization. So that was the very first time between XMNA, and I also listened to Mariam Namazi speak and call herself an ex-Muslim. That was the first time I realized that there's actually a term and people can call themselves, because honestly, while I was a Muslim, even when I was at university and I was studying Islamic law, this guy came up to me and told me that he's also doing the module, but he's like, I used to be a Muslim, but I'm not anymore. He didn't say the word ex-Muslim, but I thought he was crazy. I was like, what do you mean? Why? How could you not be able? But you kind of are, but in your heart you believe, right? Like I couldn't let it go. But he also never said the term. So in my head and in my heart of hearts, I never thought anybody said this or openly did. So I think seeing that again also made me think, dude, you're not crazy. Like these people from XMNA and Mariam Namazi, especially because she was a lot more local. She's here in England, and she's been like, she went to universities and did like actual talks on how like debilitating Sharia law is for women, and she's had those like kind of more hooligan type dawa guys at the front, just
Mm.
really kind of riling her up and just being so disrespectful, and she's taking them on. And so I was like, I was in awe. I was like, who is this woman? How is she so brave? Um, so yeah, and then I remember also reaching out to her and saying, look, I've gone through all of this and I'm ready to like speak out and I want to do my bit for this, but I'm very, very, very freaking scared. How do you do it, and what's the backlash like in England, and how safe do you feel? And she wrote me just the sweetest email back and was like, obviously, like, you know, your safety is paramount, but also like, speak your truth, girl. And I was like, okay, I got this.
Yeah, Mariam Namazi was a really influential figure in the very beginning of my journey as well. Have you seen that documentary she produced? Not one of the recent ones. It was like an older one, and it had like Sadia Hamid in it, and Rana Ahmed. I don't know if you've seen it. I
Is
have
that
to
is that
show
the
you.
woman leaving Islam one, is it?
Not that one, not that one.
It's the
It's
one before
called
that.
I can't remember. I have to send you the link. It is
Yeah,
so
please do.
brilliant. It's so
Okay.
good. That was when I discovered like the whole ex-Muslim term, and that we exist and that there's an actual, word for us basically. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's so crazy, isn't it? How much meaning it can have to just be able to put a word on this, to say, okay, this is what we are. We exist basically. Um and like there's a lot of controversy around using that ex-Muslim term. There are a lot of people who used to use it and then don't want to use it anymore and all this sort of stuff. What's your take on, I guess, the ex-Muslim label, if you want to call it that?
hmm yeah, no, great question. So when I started my activism on Twitter, it was just like low-key posts when it was almost cathartic, and I was like talking about Islam, but I had never put the word ex-Muslim, even though I was one, just because like being a humanist just sounded like I just wanted to call myself a free thinker, really. Like, you know, I'm not really bogged down by anything, but the one religion I know the most about and I have issues the most with is Islam. And then I realized that, okay, maybe that's not having enough impact, because I remember my dad saw the term ex-Muslim in a different tweet that was linked to me. And then he asked me, like, are you an ex-Muslim? And that's when I thought in that moment that, you know what, as an answer to this question, just for the way I think now and what's happening here, I need to say yes. Like, I'm not just like a humanist or a free thinker. The fact is that I was a Muslim and I no longer am one. And I will say that because the movement, I think that's what's required of it right now. We need to normalize it. Like, it's not that big of a deal now if you come across an ex-Christian. We want Islam to get to that point. We don't want it to be like ex-Muslim and like heads turn. It should just be like thrown around casually. And that's the whole point of this, is to kind of push the boundaries to normalize dissent. So, I mean, I call myself Holy Humanist on YouTube as well, but I will like gladly say ex-Muslim whenever I need to for the movement, because yeah, we need to kind of push Islam into that corner of history now where it belongs. And it's little terms like that that might just, you know, make it happen that little bit quicker.
It's so crazy to me that a big part of the work that we're doing is basically normalizing our existence,
Yeah.
and like a few years ago I didn't realize that my existence was something that needed to be normalized. I didn't even realize how controversial my decision to leave Islam was, until you start really speaking about it. It's
Yeah.
hard to gauge what that actually looks like in the eyes of the Muslim community around the world, and even non-Muslims as well. Um, so in terms of like the direction that you want to take your work and the goals you're trying to achieve with your channel, where do you see yourself taking that, let's say, over the next 1 to 2 years or so?
Yeah, so what I'm planning to do is kind of, I'm not sure like how much of like how far back in my channel people have gone or seen, but if you can, like my first two videos are kind of like setting the tone for what I want my channel to be all about. And obviously I kind of just landed up in this space and things have been happening. But my whole point is to, as I was kind of telling you, Infidel Noodle as well, but I'm not here to sit on like, you know, crazy long streams and have loads of phone calls with Muslims and go back and forth. Honestly, at times for me, I don't need to like hold their hand and go around in circles, just like banging my head against a brick wall for me. So my whole thing is about, if you want to learn more, if you want to just see what your sources have to say, and if you're like just interested in learning or thinking, then I'm kind of just trying to produce like these shorter videos now. I don't want to make them as long as my previous ones have been, but shorter videos on just like bits of Islam that really impacted me or that I think are really interesting, or like a simple debunk of like an Islamic claim, um, but in a very like kind of educational and like informed manner. So if you've got any like, you know, challenging views or whatever, I'm more than happy to discuss them, but it won't be like in this confrontational like phone kind of debate-ish way. I'm not looking for that. It's all about just being intellectually honest. Let's look at the scripture. I'll tell you what that scripture tells me and the impact I think it has for the world. So I've got a couple of videos in the pipeline now. I've got one on the Islamic golden age claim that, you know, Islam started the first university in the world. So that video is going to come out. And then, yeah, it's just going to be literally from a woman's perspective, just really kind of informed videos. And then discussions like this, like the one we're having now, just to get as many, you know, voices of other women, their experiences, and kind of get the ball rolling and show that there are like tons of women leaving Islam every single day. And we'll just make it more normal. But yeah, just that's it really. And obviously to do the same in Urdu as well, so it's a bit hard. And I'm also studying at the moment, so it's a bit hard to juggle all three, but that's the plan.
Gosh, you've got so much going on by the sounds of it. You sound very busy, and somehow at the same time, during all of that chaos, you're managing to produce these amazing informative videos that I think have the potential to have a huge, huge impact on so many people's lives. So kudos to you for doing all of that.
Oh, thank you.
And I've been loving your channel. I just the way that you articulate yourself, the way that you present ideas, I think is just so easy to digest and easy to understand. And like you can sit down and watch it and be completely engaged from start to finish. So I think your approach is just amazing. I always
Oh,
say
thank
this.
you.
No, please. I suck at hosting live streams because I never read the comments and I missed all the super chats. So
I'm
to
like that as
everyone,
well.
to everyone who's been sending super chats, thank you so much. I promise I am seeing them. I just really suck at multitasking. Um, so are there any kind of like exciting projects that you're working on and hoping to release on your channel soon, or any kind of like new I don't know, series or anything that you're planning on doing? What can we look forward to seeing from you?
Yeah, so basically, again, like I said, there's because I'm trying to juggle a bunch of things, but in the pipeline, I've been focusing a lot more on English, but because I've been doing kind of more stream related things, I haven't focused enough on my like individual videos I'd want to put out. So now I'm kind of before like my course, my master's gets really intense. I kind of want to like bang out a few of those videos before that and kind of get my channel back on into like, you know, that kind of format. But at the same time, I'm also like, I know a lot is happening in the Urdu speaking and the Pakistani and like South Asian community, so I'm planning to do a couple more streams, especially with Sultan Salatin, who I think she was in the chat earlier. So hello to you, thank you for stopping by. But we're going to do a couple of streams in Urdu as well, specifically related to like different aspects of like women in Islam. So the next one is the concept of the veil and what that means and that kind of thing. So my Urdu channel would have a lot more live streams, and in English I'm hoping to go for a lot more of like the small, educated, informative videos. But yeah, I think the next few months should be interesting because yeah, after April my course gets a lot more intense. So from now till then I'm going to be like purely focused on YouTube. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see everything that you're going to be coming up with in the future. Someone asked what you're studying. Are we allowed to know what you're studying, or is this on the down low?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm studying basically to be a like a qualified solicitor. So I want to go into public human rights law, civil liberties, and things like that. So again, hopefully this coupled with the stuff I know about Islam can go a long way to, if at the moment when I talk about people who are stranded and stuck and they're trying to get asylum here, or trying to flee religious persecution or wars and things, at the moment all I'm able to do in my power is share their stories on YouTube. But if I'm able to go that further step and actually help people and help women who are fleeing these Islamic countries, then that's kind of where my heart is.
That's awesome. And so, do you see yourself taking like your professional education and the work that you're doing on YouTube and combining that? Like, do you plan on taking these two things in a direction together at all, or
Yeah,
are they more separate?
100%.
100%?
Also because Infidel Noodle, like when you get to the point where you've like openly bashed Islam, a lot of professions are going to be like, we kind of don't want you in our workforce now. So I kind of have to go down the human rights law route now, because
Fair
I'm like,
enough.
this Islam and human rights, this is very much in line. So I can make this work as a career.
Awesome. And it's so funny, isn't it, how that works out? Like before you started studying law, did you start your studies before all of the ex-Muslim stuff, or did you start it because of the ex-Muslim stuff?
No, so my actual undergrad anyway was in law and economics. So,
Okay.
but in England, you have to do this thing where you actually then qualify to become like an actual practicing lawyer. So I had taken a break from that, but like this is why it's so weird as well. Like I've got like blogs that I've written ages ago where I'm like, I want to be a human rights lawyer and I don't know why, but I want to like help women. But I was always going to do that just from this angle of being a Muslim. But now it's like almost feels like I've had this awakening where you see the damage that Islam itself is doing to these women, but they don't know the damage that Islam is doing. So something as simple as like living in England and going to choose to get married via the Sharia court as opposed to getting a civil registration is literally you're really ruining your chances of whatever's going to happen in your life. So these tiny things, but women are so proud when they do these little things, and like the Sharia system in England now is kind of operating in tandem to the civil system anyway, but women think this is the right thing to do, and the men, surprise surprise, encourage them to do this, like take this route, go get Sharia, get your inheritance through Sharia, get your kids custodies, like sign everything is through that. So even in a legal sense now, I think we need a lot more lawyers and young lawyers in England to come up and also challenge the Sharia court system. And who's going to do that? No, nobody who's not from a Muslim background ever wants to like take up that fight. So it is a very, very niche area, but I think human rights and kind of helping women through what Islam is doing to them can kind of work together really nicely, and that is my long-term goal.
Absolutely. And it is such a niche area, and we need so many more professionals in this space who have that, kind of lived experience, or I guess internal understanding of what this world of Muslim, ex-Muslim actually looks like.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm so excited to hear, that you're wanting to steer your professional path, towards some of this stuff as well, because that's kind of where I found myself ending up too, even though I
Nice.
never intended it. Like
Mhm.
I just made a random Twitter account one day and somehow it turned into like my Infidel Noodle account. And
Yeah.
like now my whole career mindset is like geared towards, this space, because like you said, it is so, so niche. And if people like you and I don't do it, no one else is going to. So it has to be us, really. At this point, we don't even have a choice. Like,
Yeah, 100%. It's like a duty at this point. It's just
right, that's how it feels.
it
That's
does
exactly
feel
how it
like that.
feels.
It's very true.
Um, I'll stop talking about it on stream, but I'd love to discuss some of that with you behind the scenes and, potentially collaborate in a professional space someday. I think that that could be really, really awesome. I've
Most
been looking
definitely.
for an ex-Muslim lawyer and now I found one in the making. So this is great.
Yeah, no, that would be good. We'll definitely do stuff.
For sure. Damn it, I'm missing all your super chats. Okay, you can be open ex-Muslim lawyer. Let's go after social media crackdown. Well, I think Maria is going to have many other things on her plate when she is fully qualified as a solicitor, apart from cracking down social media. Super chat from Veiled Rose, ex-Muslim lefty lesbian here, living my best life with my long-term partner and pets. Yay, me too, bestie. Proof that this Islamist mind control can be rejected. Absolutely, they can be rejected. All three of us, and I'm sure many more in the chat, are proof of that.
Yeah,
Always here to
Veiled
support you
Rose, I'm so
guys.
happy you're living your best life and you're always here to support. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, look, guys, I don't want to turn this into a 10-hour stream, even though I could easily do this for a very, very, very long time. But I have to let the fabulous Nuria go because I know that she has many things to be doing. I'll quickly read out the super chat. Thank you for educating women, especially mentioning the Islamic vile antagonism to polytheism. You're welcome. We will
You're so
continue to do
welcome.
so.
Yeah, anytime. Also, I think AP stopped by in the chats as well, Infidel Noodle, or I think with a super chat as well. So AP, thank you so much. I don't know where it's gone. Or
Oh yeah, sorry.
where.
See, this is what I mean. I
No
already
question.
forgot that he did this. So thank you so much, AP. And thank you for having both, Nuria and I on your channel to kind of get us started in the space and kick off and kind of get into the hang of things. You were a very influential figure for me in my journey. So
Most
thank
definitely.
you.
The gentle giant. Thank you so much, AP.
The gentle giant, and he's gonna love that.
I
All
actually
right.
used it on
Well,
our stream.
I'm going to start using that. That's pretty funny. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, thank you so much, Nuria, for taking the time to meet with me. I really, really hope that we get to do this again soon because I know that there's so many things that you and I could get stuck into and talk about for hours and hours. So we're going to have to make the time for that
Yeah, most
in the future.
definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, obviously we're going to keep in touch and let's see what we can do for this movement. But yeah, thank you so much for hosting me and to everybody for watching and all your lovely comments and support. You guys are the reason we carry on because the other side is very hostile. So thank you.
Yeah, we do this all for you guys. And I'm so excited to see you guys next time with another guest and one day soon, hopefully Nuria again. But until then, I hope you guys have an awesome evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you very soon. Bye.
Bye.
If you like these videos and want to support me in my activism, then you can support me on Patreon or PayPal. Stay free, everyone!